I'm Kai Cheng Thom, and you're watching Ask Kai, Quick Tips for the Apocalypse, a series of short videos in which I teach you everything you need to know to survive and thrive and live and love and learn and eat and pray and love in the post-apocalypse, new apocalypse, end of the world thing. So today's question comes from someone who describes themselves as an older baby gay. I'm in my 40s and just came out to myself. I feel like I've missed out on a lot. Any advice for an older baby gay? So this question is the very sweetest. I love it. I just want to tell you, welcome to the world of gay, the world of queer, the world of LGBTQIAS+, all the letters. It's amazing. And also kind of terrible sometimes, but mostly just amazing. You know, there was a time when coming out in one's 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s or even 80s was really not uncommon. When I started practicing as a counselor way back in the day, I had a lot of clients at the sexual identity clinic that I interned at who were much older and had come out in mid or later life. It's only like a pretty recent phenomenon, and I think that the phenomenon is also like really particularly located to certain social circles and communities that we think that people should or are supposed to come out in adolescence or early adulthood. And perhaps somewhat unfortunately, queer cultural production in film and literature has tended to idealize and romanticize this idea of coming out in your teens and early 20s. It's sort of often painted with this like glossy kind of coming of age narrative where one is meant to come out at that age. And if you didn't, then you missed the boat, or it's really tragic, and coming out later in life is terrible. And I certainly don't want to minimize anyone's experiences if, for example, one is queer and has spent a lot of time in the closet. That certainly can be emotionally challenging, perhaps even traumatic, but also there's nothing wrong with coming out in one's 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. Sometimes that's just a part of the life journey that one is on. And a lot of folks I know who've come out in later life say that even when they were with other partners in so-called heterosexual relationships, that coming out later in life didn't negate like the love or the intimacy that they shared. A lot of queer folks I know have come out older have also had children in heterosexual partnerships and nuclear families, and none of that is necessarily devalued by coming out later in life. So I just want to affirm that. I will say coming out in early adolescence isn't necessarily all it's cracked up to be. One doesn't have full control over one's own decision making. One definitely doesn't have a great handle on sex and sexuality. And pretty much the consequences for coming out were in the hands of one's peers or one's parents, the adults around. So there can be some benefits, I think, to coming out in mid or later life. But I guess if I had any advice of potential value to someone coming out in their 40s, it would be to remember to have fun. That there are a lot of queers your age, a lot of queers your age who are still in the process of discovering themselves, of coming out. We are always in a process of discovering ourselves and figuring out who we are anyway. So if you can, to let go and enjoy the process. There isn't like a target destination when it comes to being queer. It's really all just a really long journey, and there are many twists and turns to it. On a practical level, I imagine that someone who is coming out for the first time might be thinking about what will it be like to walk into a gay bar for the first time, or be on a queer date for the first time, or have queer sex. I don't know if this will be for the first time, but to be having it as an out person. And I guess what I would say about that is, again, not to worry about having missed doing that in adolescence, because it will feel adolescent when you do it for the first time. Hooray! Or maybe not so hooray. When you do it, it will probably feel a little nerve-wracking, exciting, scary, delightful, that weird mix of happy and not happy at the same time. Maybe you won't know what to say at first. Maybe you won't know what to do with yourself. And without knowing you more personally, I don't know if there's like specific advice I can give, but in general, I would say it is meant to be awkward. Someone in their 40s probably has a sense of what it was like to be a teen or in the early 20s doing anything social for the first time, maybe first drink, first adult party, first heterosexual date, if one was living a heterosexual life before. And the truth is about these things is it's awkward at first. And then the second time you do it, it's a little easier. And the third time, it's even easier. And then suddenly you're in a groove. And for some of us, it gets really easy. And for some of us, it's always a little awkward if you're like me. But it does get smoother. It does get easier. But you practice, you get better at. And that is certainly true for living a big old gay life as well. Something else I might suggest is focusing in equal measure on building gay or queer community, as well as entering gay romantic or sexual relationships. I think that when we come out, sometimes the most obvious thing is to get on a hookup app or a dating site and try and find a romantic partner. And that's awesome. I really encourage people to do that if that's what they want. And the world of dating, gay or straight, can be really hard on the heart. People are not there necessarily to make friends. They're often there to do other things. And that, and like the push and pull, the quick starts and stops of that world can be really challenging to someone who is looking to get into a community as well as find intimate partners. Those two are separate goals. So I would suggest, getting into one's interests, like if you're already into singing or sports or yoga or rock climbing, I'm happy to tell you that there are probably gay groups for that. If you don't live in like a large urban area, there are definitely online groups to talk about things that you're already interested in, but with gay and queer people. And if you happen to live in a large urban area, there probably are actually in-person groups for that kind of thing as well. To do the things you would normally do, but with queer people is often a great way to, first of all, to meet a partner by accident rather than doing it in the online way, but also to build friendships and get a sense of gay culture and what community has to offer beyond sex and romance. Because something that I love about gay and queer community, and I think that has really supported a lot of folks through the heartbreak of trying to find a partner, is having queer friends and queer community. So I would really suggest bringing that into your life as well, if that's something that sounds interesting and exciting, and to let the dating and hookup world do what it will. Both of those can be really, really special experiences at any age. That's it for today. You've been watching Ask Kai, quick tips for the apocalypse. Stay safe, wash your hands. I'm just gonna say, maybe consider continuing to wear your mask, even if you're double vaccinated. We just don't know where things are gonna go. I don't wanna restrict anyone's freedom, but also I'm just an advice columnist. I can't really tell you what to do, but think about it.